지금부터 파일코인 스토리지 프로바이더 미트업 2022 코리아 행사를 시작하겠습니다. 안녕하십니까? 저는 오늘 아나운서 김도헌입니다. 반갑습니다. 바쁘신 와중에도 이렇게 자리를 빛내주신 내외빈 분들께 진심으로 감사드립니다. 오늘 행사는 개회식과 축사, 강연, 패널 토론, 오픈 퀘스천 순으로 진행됩니다. 오픈 퀘스천이 끝나면 자유로운 네트워킹 시간이 준비되어 있으니까요. 음식과 와인을 곁들이면서 즐기실 수 있는 시간이니까 마지막까지 함께 자리해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 그럼 지금부터 파일코인 스토리지 프로바이더 미트업 2022 코리아를 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 힘찬 박수와 함께 출발하겠습니다. 네, 이번 행사는 프로토콜랩스와 파일코인 파운데이션에서 주최하고 프로토콜랩스의 한국 지역 공증인 테넷DS에서 후원합니다. 먼저 주최 측에 대해 간략하게 소개해드리겠습니다. 프로토콜랩스는 IPFS의 창시자인 후안 베넷이 설립한 회사입니다. 파일코인을 개발하며 분산형 저장 시스템 세계의 문을 활짝 열었습니다. 현재 미국의 스탠퍼드, 하버드, MIT, 구글, IBM 100여 명의 공학자들로 구성되어 있는데요. 공동 오픈소스 프로젝트를 통해 실제적이고 효과적인 스토리지 확장을 도모해 가고 있습니다. 오늘날 IPFS와 파일코인 기술은 사회 제반 분야에서 활약하며 그 지평을 넓혀가고 있습니다. 특히 데이터 보안이 중요한 분야에서 각광받고 있는데요. 파일코인은 웹 3.0으로의 전환에 있어서 핵심적인 역할을 할 것으로 주목되고 있습니다. 다음은 오늘 행사를 후원하는 테넷DS입니다. 주식회사 테넷DS는 프로토콜랩스의 한국 지역 공증인으로서 이장선 대표님과 함께 분산형 데이터 저장 기술을 개발하고 있습니다. 빠르고 안전하면서도 가격 경쟁력까지 있는 기술을 통해 혁신적인 데이터 세상의 도래를 앞당기는 선두주자 역할을 톡톡히 하고 있습니다. 오늘 참 뜻깊은 자리죠. 이 프로토콜랩스와 파일코인 파운데이션에서 한국 지역의 SP와 교류하기 위해 마련한 미트업인데요. 이 팬데믹 이후 오프라인에서 개최되는 행사는 근본이 처음인 만큼 오늘 의미가 참 남다릅니다. 그런 만큼 오늘 이 핵심 인물들의 생생한 이야기들을 많이 들어보실 수 있을 텐데요. 최신 기술과 개발 상황에 관한 내용이 오갈 예정이니까요. 모든 순간 잘 경청해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 오늘 미트업을 통해 IPFS 생태계를 조명하고 많은 관심을 촉구하고자 합니다. 나아가 더 많은 SP들이 생겨서 이 생태계 저변이 확대되기를 소망합니다. 제 소망에 맞춰서 오늘 이렇게 많은 분들이 자리해 주셨는데요. 줌으로 실시간 스트리밍까지 되고 있다고 합니다. 그럼 오늘 참석해 주신 내빈을 소개해 드리겠습니다. 한국 지역 공증인 블록체인 월드 참석하셨습니다. 또 한국 지역 SP, 글로벌 유닛 A, 마인코더, 파일코인 코리아, TVCC, 태진솔루션 IDC, 맥스피아 ICT, IPFS 한국 데이터 센터, 보고에서 참석해 주셨습니다. 오늘 여러 기업에서도 자리를 빛내주셨는데요. 화웨이, 차이나 모바일 인터내셔널, 엑스퓨전, 시게이트, 구글 클라우드, 클레이튼, 유림 TS, 한국 디지털 경제 교류협회에서 참석해 주셨습니다. 마지막으로 파일코인과 IPF 기술에 깊은 관심을 보내주셨던 전북대학교 교수진 참석해 주셨습니다. 이 밖에도 많은 분들이 자리를 빛내주셨지만 시간 관계상 하나하나 모두 소개해드리지 못하는 점 양해 말씀드립니다. 내외빈 소개는 이것으로 마칩니다. 그럼 바로 이어서 축사와 인사 말씀이 있겠습니다. 테넷DS 스티븐 이해 회장님과 파일코인 파운데이션 클라라 창립 이사님, 그리고 SP 생태계 리더 스테판 세 분을 무대 위로 모시겠습니다. 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.
教授好，欢迎大家来参加我们这次这个在首尔举行的这个 SPM 2022。我想大家跟我一样都非常的开心，能够在首尔第一次见到这么多来自于 PL 和 FF 的这么一些同仁。这次过来了差不多有20位。其实 Filecoin 的这个项目或者是 IPFS 这个技术在韩国，大家了解和关注时间已经很长了。但是的话呢，昨天我在跟这个 PL 的同事在交流的时候说，虽然说韩国这边我们做了大量的工作，但是 PL 包括 FF 对韩国这边的关注或者是支持不够。他们说以后会常来。对，其实确实在这段时间里面，我们在韩国，我们的Filecoin 的算力，增长得非常的快，现在已经占到全球的4%了。我想将来还会增长得更快，在大家的共同努力之下。第二个的话呢，就是我也非常的欢迎，来自于我们韩国各个地方有很多从釜山过来的啊，很多的这个新老的朋友还有客户。包括我们从这个全美大学来的我们的几位教授，我觉得都很难得，我们大家一起聚在一起来听一听今天我们的这个 PL 和包括 FFS 他们的这边的同仁能够给我们带来多少崭新的内容。其实的话呢，我也很想感谢一下，就是筹备了这么长时间啊。这个我们这边的同事，叫 10DS 这边的同事，包括我们 PL 这边的同仁一起来主办了这样一次活动。其实大概准备了快好几个月了啊，他们非常辛苦。而且我们这边的同仁的话呢，基本上是晚上跟美国这边开会，白天跟我们这边开会，就非常辛苦，很长一段时间，组织了这么一次非常好的一次活动。然后呢，这个我觉得，在我们跟 PL 这边的沟通过程当中，我们觉得就是，关于 IPFS 和 Filecoin 这最新的信息，一直以来在韩国我们很难直接得到。我们都是从很多其他地方传过来的。那这次活动之后，我们会非常的希望 PL 能够给我们最直接的信息啊，有关于这个技术层面的，有关于这个项目信息层面的，就包括我们的投资人也希望能够了解到最直接的信息嘛。最后的话呢，就是我跟 PL 这边也在沟通，就是未来的世界是 Web3 的世界，对吧？那么在 Web3 的应用开发方面的话呢，我觉得如果说 PL 能够给我们最直接的支持，能够在韩国帮我们培养出一批基于 Web3 开发应用的这样一支技术团队，这个那我觉得可能是下一步，他们最想做的，也是我们最想做的。所以这次我们也请了我们全美大学的这个代表教授过来，就是能够跟 PL 进行的做深入的交流，那我们共同来培养一支在韩国的 Web3。他们其实有好多个 PL 的同事，他们是提前2周就到韩国来了。他们也是希望能够在韩国找一些 Web3 的应用方面的一些开发的一些优秀的一些团队，但其实是相对来说和美国比起来，和新加坡比起来，可能和中国比起来还是要弱很多的。那么我们的使命是什么？就是我们能够建立起这样一支开发的团队。我们这次在这个会上，我们大家会听到很多他们这边的一些计划，也包括我们这边的一些计划。我们共同，为了推动 Filecoin 的应用能够蓬勃的发展，我们做出共同的努力。谢谢大家，欢迎。
네, 테넷DS 스티븐 이해 회장님의 축사와 인사 말씀이 있었습니다. 회장님 다시 한번 감사합니다. 다음으로는 파일코인 파운데이션 클라라 창립 이사님을 모셔보겠습니다. 뜨거운 박수로 환영해 주시죠.
안녕하세요, Korea. It's so great to see all of you guys here. We know that we have over 400 incredible storage providers and growing here in Korea. So My name is Clara. I am the founding officer of the Filecoin Foundation. We are so thrilled to support community meetups like here. We have done meetups all around the world, but this is our biggest meetup yet in real life in Asia, actually. We have never done anything like this in Asia. And we first want to thank our incredible collaboration with Tencent for putting this for putting on this incredible event. Today is packed with a ton of talks from different people in the Filecoin ecosystem. You'll learn about data onboarding. You'll learn about how to become a storage provider if you're early stage here. And you will also learn about other things that we're building, like Filecoin Virtual Machine. And so I'm going to turn to Stefan from Protocol Labs for some additional remarks.
안녕하세요. I tried. Thank you everyone for coming. Very happy to see so many people in the room today. And as Clara mentioned, we both were very excited to finally come to Seoul and meet the Korean ecosystem. I'm Stefan. I'm responsible for I'm the head of storage provider ecosystem. So every morning I wake up thinking about all of you, how I can help you. So hopefully today will be a good day for you to learn more about our strategy, what we're working on. And more importantly, we want to hear from you, your feedback, how we can do better and how we can help you build your business. So please reach out to us as well if you want to have a conversation with us. But very excited and, Filecoin fight, go on, let's go. Thank you.
I also wanted to say meetups like this did not exist around a year and a half ago. We only started these kind of meetups actually virtually a year and a half ago. So it's incredible that all of you guys have come together today in person as a community to not only meet each other, but we know many of you guys may have met each other online in different ways. You guys may have watched videos or talked to each other, and we are just so thrilled that all of you guys have decided to come a long way into this very confusing building to find us today. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you like it.
네, 클라라 이사님과 스테판 창립 이사 세 분을 무대 위로 모셔서 이야기를 많이 들어봤습니다. 좋은 말씀 나눠주셔서 감사합니다. 네, 이로써 개회식을 모두 마치고 잠시 후 자리가 정돈되는 대로 강연을 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 네, 첫 번째 강연해 주실 연사님께서 준비가 완료되신 것 같습니다. 이제부터 강연을 시작하겠습니다. 오늘 총 9분의 연사님을 모셨는데요. 어떤 이야기들을 나눠주실지 벌써부터 기대가 됩니다. 오늘 첫 강연입니다. Enterprise Data Store End-to-End, 기업 데이터 저장 End-to-End를 주제로 말씀해 주실 테넷DS 스티븐 이해 회장님을 무대 위로 모시겠습니다. 힘찬 박수로 맞이해 주십시오.
Hello， 我又来了。今天我用10分钟时间讲一下，我也是算是给我们这次这个 PL 他们要做的更加具体的技术层面的汇报，我做一个开一个头。其实我今天讲的内容呢，也是跟技术密切相关的。就是大家都知道 Filecoin 的话呢，有一个非常强大的一个基础设施建立起来了，就是它有很大的一个存储容量。但是我们如何能够把这个存储容量充分的应用起来，这是我们面临的一个巨大的课题。因为我们作为一个 SP， 就是我们作为一个存储服务的提供商来讲，那么我们首先要考虑的是，我们所构建起来的这样的一个庞大的存储体系，如何能够让我们的企业用起来。谢谢。那么，所以说我们提了几句话，叫传统的企业客户，特别是拥有巨大的数据存储需求的客户，如何将其数据迁移到 Filecoin 网络，这是当前我们要完成的一个非常重要的使命。所以我们我们计划开发一套系统，不能说我们已经开发了，叫做端到端的中间件系统。我们主要是解决，就是我们降低它这个迁移的这个难度。那么目前呢，作为我们的这个机构来讲啊，我们这个机构其实从事于 Filecoin 的这个项目的这个运作时间已经很久了，但在韩国我们成立是去年开始成立的，在这个过程当中我们做了大量的工作。 目前在我们的韩国的一个机房里面，就是 KT 的机房里面，我们已经有了47个 PB 的这个存储容量。然后的话呢，目前我们在当前这个整个的这个市场形势并不是十分太好的情况底下，我们的话呢部署了5个比较大的业务板块。这些业务板块我今天不去细讲啊，有机会的话我可以跟大家沟通。它主要围绕的就是如何能够让我们的传统企业能够用好Filecoin这个网络。那么这里边所谓的我们要实现的这个目标，基本上我们就可以刚才我们说的，首先是让企业要用到我们的这个Filecoin，同时的话呢，我们要为我们的这个市场、为我们的客户、又为我们的数据使用的客户提供方便的检索服务，这也是我们下面重点要开发的内容。那么，所以我们提出了一个叫做端到端。所谓的端到端，就是说我们企业是一端，然后的话呢，我们的这个数据存储的这个基础设施是一端，我们希望能够把它打通。那么，目前来看啊，所谓的这个企业级的存储服务，就是基于 Filecoin 的企业级的存储服务，这里面我们所看到的需求大概是这么几样，就是以前在中心化的存储里边他们已经给企业提供了非常好的服务了。那么，如何充分利用好这种分布式的存储，来为我们的企业提供服务呢？就是我觉得第一个方面就是说，目前面临的这个现状就是，我们的这个存储这个基础设施非常好，但是我们一直没有实现。把这个就是海量的这种客户数据迁移到我们的这个Filecoin里面来，这是我们的第一个就是这个现实的问题。但是的话呢，就是这个需求是巨大的，这是我们的第一个。第二个的话呢，就是Filecoin本身所具备的这种加密的这种能力，我们讲叫POREP 的11层加密，就这种加密能力。会给我们客户的数据带来巨大的安全，这是我们的一个事实上的我觉得Filecoin的一个价值。还有的话呢，就是Filecoin本身它这个项目在设计的过程当中，它能够给我们的客户提供一个非常好的激励机制，就是我们一直说的通俗的讲叫做挖矿啊。本质上讲，它就是为我们的这个形成的这种Filecoin的共识，我们提供了一个激励。这个激励会让我们的那些投资设备的投资者很容易回收自己的投资，所以当他为我们的企业提供存储服务的时候，它的服务成本相对来说就会比较低，这是Filecoin一个巨大的优势。那么昨天我们在跟Filecoin项目在这个 PR 在沟通的时候。就是2017年，当Filecoin的这个项目设立的时候，他们和美国的 SEC 就是证券管理管理的机构，他们达成了非常多的共识，所以他们在用Filecoin这个 File 这个币去进行融资的过程当中，他们是合法合规的，所以他们形成了其实当时投资到这个项目里面这个Filecoin项目里面的都是一些非常合规的投资机构，包括他们的这个政府。所以这个项目才能够得到非常好的这个全世界的这样一个认知，然后呢，为我们提供了一个很好的回报方式，从而为我们将来提供这种存储服务降低了成本。所以，基于这样的一些优势，我们来分析，我们如何能够充分利用好Filecoin的这个平台。我们提了几个比较重要的需求。一个呢，就是 OSS 对象的存储，这类存储呢，其实是我们目前大量的中心化存储所服务的那些客户，就包括我们各种各样的 APP， 包括我们各种各样的应用。那么，我们通过一个 SDK， 能够把他们原来是通过 HTTP 这种协议去访问的这些存储，不管是存储还是访问存储，我们给它转化到这个 IPFS 上面来，这是我们的第一个最重要的一个需求。第二个需求的话呢，就是我们的虚拟云盘、虚拟云盘这块的这个业务的话呢，也是我们经常会用到的。那这块的需求的话呢，我们也一样，我们可以通过一个接口来实现。 就是通过这个我们的这个公链，就是通过 Filecoin 这个公链，能够给它提供类似这样的云盘服务。那这里边的话呢，可能有一些大量的开发工作要去做。第三个的话呢，就是我们如何充分利用到 Filecoin 闲置的存储和闲置的算力，因为这里面确确实实存在。那么这是我们一个很重要的课题。基于这样一些应用，利用我们能够把这个客户的冷数据能够备份到我们的芯片，这是我们的重要的需求。基于这个需求的话呢，我们设计了一些我们要开发的内容。我们要开发的内容，这个呢也是今天这个 PR 要重点去讲的。当然说，我们站在一个服务提供商的角度上讲，我们提出了一些想法，这些想法我们会和 PR 去沟通。未来我们会在韩国组建开发团队去实现这些。首先一个的话呢，我们计划要做的就是就是我们为这个 Web3和这个 NFT 的开发者，我们提供一个 SDK， 能够让他们把他们的这些内容，就是基于 Web3的这样一些存储的这样一些内容，放到我们的 Filecoin 的这个存储里面。这是我们的第一个我们想开发的东西。第二个的话呢，就是我们能够把一些主流的公有的这个所谓的这个传统的中心化的存储系统里面的这些数据，能够迁移到我们的 Filecoin 里面来。这个我们也可以开发一个 SDK， 这个也是我们重点要去做的。第三个的话呢，就是我们做一个 HTTP 和 IPFS 的中转的这样一个我们叫做转换器。那么这块的工作呢，也是我们很重要的一个要开发的内容。然后的话呢，我们下面的这个还有3块我们想做，其实我们想做的东西很多了，我重点提出这么几块。一个呢就是我们的矿工评级。因为现在在全世界有上千个矿工，那么他们的服务质量和水平是不一样的。你比如说，我们现在在首尔，我们用的是 SK 的KT 的机房，那很多其他的矿工可能用的就不一定是这么高级别的机房，那么他们的服务水平是不一样的。所以我们要给矿工提供，要做一个评级的这么一个黄页系统。那这个也是我们重点希望能开发的，这样有利于我们提供一个可信的、可靠的存储服务。然后呢，第二块的话呢，就是我们想做的就是我们的这个所谓的数据分片和防灾系统，就是我们形象的讲，就是我们如何能够把很多的矿工做成一个RAID阵列，就是能够让更加的这个安全的去提供一个分布式的存储服务，这是我们想做的。然后呢，下面我们就是我们 CDN 的加速。CDN 的加速也是因为现在 Filecoin 呢整个的构建这个网络是一个全球分布的一个网络，节点分布在全球。我们如何能够让它快速的为大家提供这种存储的这种上传和下载服务，这是我们要去做的内容。所以的话呢，就是这是一个形象的比喻。就目前来看 ，Filecoin 这个网络，当然我们技术方面我们还要做大量的工作，才能让它逐步的成熟。那么在这个阶段，它能够最好的实现的这个应用，就是我们所谓的数据备份这个方向往下。所以这是我们做的一个目前10DS 我们所设计的一个服务流程。因为大家都知道 ，Filecoin 是个分布式的存储网络。它如果要为企业提供企业级的服务的话呢，这里边完全依靠这种自动化的是很难操作的。所以这里边的话呢，就涉及到需要一个中间机构，去按照一套服务流程，能够为我们的企业提供相应的服务。所以这个工作，我觉得是我们以前所理解的纯粹的 Web3 应用所不同的。所以这里面我们设计了一套服务流程，就是从咨询开始，我们到提供指南。提供量身定做的方案，到最后收集客户的数据，然后我们再把它存储进去。这里面涉及到一些合同层面的一些事情，都是我们要去做的，需要我们去设计的。那这块东西目前在整个的 Filecoin 的社区里面，我们已经形成了一个讨论的热点，就是我们如何能够用一个去中心化的服务为那些这个企业的数据是不公开的，为他们提供相应的服务。我们都在讨论，在全球。所以呢，总体上讲，我今天就想跟大家先简单开一个场，就是我觉得现在市场需要什么，我们能提供什么。 那么真正的话呢，提供解决方案的，除了我们以外，还需要更多的开发者，还需要我们的 PL 这边呢能够有一个非常好的一个规划，能够构建一个非常好的路线图等等。这些的话呢，我们请 PL 来给我们提供讲解，谢谢。
네, 스테파니의 회장님의 연설이었습니다. 좋은 말씀 많이 나눠주셔서 감사합니다. 경쟁력 있는 파일코인을 기업 생태계에서 활용할 수 있는 방안을 상세히 설명해 주셨습니다. 이제 다음으로 두 번째 강연을 시작하겠습니다. SP Strategy and Programs, SP 전략 및 프로그램을 주제로 말씀해 주실 스테판 무대 위로 모시겠습니다. 뜨거운 박수로 환영해 주십시오.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Welcome again. So what I would like to do is give you a short overview on some of the new programs that we are building and also our strategy and our direction that we're taking at Protocol Labs and Filecoin Foundation. First and foremost, as most of you seen, the landscape has changed. And so just some backstory. I have 20 years of experience in selling storage into enterprise environments. And 15 years ago, I was working for an object storage startup competing against Amazon, who came out with an S3 or an object interface. In 2000, Amazon launched it in 2006. And at the time, most of the enterprises, most of the companies we talked to said, people will never store their data in the cloud. Enterprises will never do this. And so look what happened. Today, cloud is like the standard way of storing your data. And so today, we're at the same position as we were 15 years ago when Amazon created the S3 interface. But today, it's going to be Filecoin. And so we are seeing right now a transition happening where decentralized storage is getting a ton more awareness. And thanks to, also like the success that you have helped us build, how you have helped us build a network, and the new customers that are now joining our network, we will be able to demonstrate the world how useful and how important Filecoin is to all of us as we build out this network. So most of the data that is stored or created is not, most of the data that's being created is not stored. We all know this, right? So IDC came out with a prediction that there's going to be 3 times more data between 2020 and 25 being created, and 80% of that data is coming from enterprises. So that's where we need to go after. And so today, we support not just public data sets, but also private data sets, and I think that's very important. So one of our strategies is to accelerate the onboarding of enterprise data as a whole. Second, as I mentioned, the cloud is obviously a large solution, or is one of the largest storage stacks out there. And so for you as service providers or storage providers, what we're doing here today is not just building out Filecoin storage provider ecosystem, we're actually building the foundation for the next wave of service providers that will store data, compute data, and run applications either using smart contracts or just connections into other blockchains that are doing decentralized compute. And so today, cloud is being centralized. The current service providers in Web3, their margins are being squeezed by the cloud providers, and so it's an opportunity for all of you to go after that market and start charging for the data that you protect for your end customers. So we did a recent survey, and we'll announce more of the information and data once the white paper has been written. But I wanted to give you 3 numbers so far that came out of the survey. So we did a survey with enterprise customers, and 90% of the enterprises are interested in a decentralized storage solution. That's amazing, right? So we interviewed more than 300 enterprise companies, and the reason is because it's significantly cheaper and it offers at least similar performance. This is something we have to continue to work on through our CDN capabilities, but in the end, the demand, the interest is there. Second, 85% of respondents indicate their enterprises would benefit from increasing the number of geographical distributed locations. So you as a storage provider implementing Filecoin systems closer to the end customer is a huge benefit versus using centralized solutions that are only available in certain areas. And then 87% of the enterprises were at least somewhat concerned about public cloud provider lock-in. So as you all know, if you store data in a cloud environment, it's cheap to move data in. It's extremely expensive to move data out. We have talked to customers today that are spending millions of dollars to move their data back out of the cloud into another cloud. Here, this is again an opportunity to differentiate and demonstrate that Filecoin does not require necessarily egress costs. Of course, you as a storage provider can choose that. So why Filecoin? Obviously, most of you know this. I don't have to explain this, but this is some of the pitch that we continuously provide to our customers. Immutability is one of the number one reasons. Transparent, decentralized, gives you economies of scale, ability to access the data from multiple locations or anywhere in the world through the CID, data locality close to the customer, durability, the fact that you can store multiple copies in an open format, and cost, of course, which allows us to go after all those data sets today that are either not stored or that are currently stored on another storage medium. So what's our mission, right? Our mission for the storage provider ecosystem is to build the platform for decentralized web by building a network of enterprise-grade Web3 storage providers and treating them like gold, right? Our goal is for us to help you as much as we can, and we do that through the ecosystem. As I mentioned before, or yesterday, we don't necessarily want to build a 1,000-person company. We'd rather invest in companies, in the ecosystem, in teams that create tooling and applications than hiring more people within Protocol Labs or Filecoin Foundation, because we know that if we invest in the ecosystem, the whole ecosystem will benefit from it. So what are our goals for next quarter and this quarter? These are a few. There's a ton more, but I just wanted to give you an update on the left side. Last quarter, we saw the total number of storage providers grow to 4,000 plus systems. We added 275 systems. We released and refined the Filecoin roadmap. We coordinated 3 in-person meetups. We created a new website, sp.filecoin.io. For any storage provider here, I recommend you to go to that website. That's where you will find all the information of new programs, content that we are creating. We launched 2 new enablement programs with Venus Hub and FSPM, and established storage provider working group in Singapore. Also, we have one in Korea, in Asia, US, Europe, and we can add many more. What is our focus this quarter? We want to continue to enable all of you to store more deals. We are in the second phase of our master plan. The phase 1 was bringing capacity onto the network. We have now an enormous amount of capacity. Phase 2 is to bring data to the network and demonstrate to the world the utility of Filecoin. So today, you will hear from Angelo and a couple of other people from Protocol Labs on what the new programs are that we would recommend you to sign up for. Our goal is to build strong community, and we want to invest, now that we finally are more free to organize conferences in person again, to present and work with the Asia community and really build a strong community. So that's why this has been a very important event for us. Singapore is next, and we'll have another event in Singapore by the end of September. We also are building our own Twitter account, the newsletter. I'll talk about that in a second. And we also are refining sealing as a service option, so basically more tech capability in the software Lotus stack, so that you'll be able to provide or consume sealing as a service. So basically, if you don't have all the compute, you could then take advantage from someone else who has a lot of compute and use their services to seal your data. And of course, we want to onboard new programs, so we'd like to hear from you as well on what you think we need to implement in Korea to help the growth of the ecosystem here in Korea. This is an overview of the growth, and if you look at the different profiles, you'll see that the majority of our storage providers are within 1 to 10 pebibytes of capacity, and that's a very healthy pipeline or healthy funnel. As you can see, the network is not only growing in total amount of systems, but also the systems that we see are increasing in capacity themselves. So the individual storage systems are growing as well, which is what we look at when we look at successful deployment of our ecosystem. Second, we will continue to, our focus is to continue to invest in East Asia and emerging markets. We are seeing a ton of growth, as I mentioned. Currently, officially, we're seeing around 10% of the miner IDs are based in Korea. Maybe, most of you are probably here in the room, or some of them are not, but our goal is to continue to invest in Asia through community meetups, collaboration from a marketing perspective, business development. If you have actual customers and you need help, please let us know. Here's some examples of signals that we look at. So we created a landing page, and I get the question like, hey, how is the ecosystem doing as a whole? You know, when I'm in Europe, people are asking, how's the US doing? How's Asia doing? I can tell you that today, we get more than 100 requests a week of people that are interested in becoming a storage provider. So the demand, even though we're in a winter time frame and it's cold, not here, but unfortunately it's hard time and we understand that, we still see a ton of interest and growth overall, and that's very important. We're seeing demand in emerging markets like Africa, Saudi Arabia, we're seeing Latin America, which is great because the network is as strong as the adoption across the world. And so for us, it's important to have a truly decentralized network. And today we can say that our network is extremely decentralized, as none of these systems are run by the foundation or protocol labs. This is all you. So we're going to continue to provide more information to you as well through our Twitter account and our storage provider newsletter. So I recommend everyone to sign up for that, because that's really important. The second most important thing for us right now, and this is where all the focus is on, is the total data that's uploaded to the network. So today we have seen an enormous amount of growth in the last 6 months, where at the end of December we were at 20 pebibytes of data stored on the network. Today we're at 139, so I think this was a snapshot of yesterday. We are growing to 1 pebibytes of capacity of real data stored on a daily basis on our network. Our goal is to increase that to 5 pebibytes of storage on a daily basis by the end of this year. Please help us in accomplishing that. And so we ask everyone to bring your customers to the network and tell us what tooling and support that you need for you to be successful. Stephen did a great presentation over the concept, and it's very well aligned with what our goals are, so thank you for that. So what are we tracking? So the number of storage providers that are taking deals today, and I think this is an important metric. As you know, I hope you know, we are extremely transparent. Every month, we do a public all hands, and most of you may not know this, but we promote it on YouTube, and you can actually see what our teams are working on, what my team is working on, the accomplishments we've made, and the highlights and the bottlenecks. And so I recommend you to look at YouTube. I know we're all very busy, but one of our big important things is to be transparent in what we measure as well, and this is what we're measuring now. Today we have 4,000 miner IDs, and around 400, or actually I should say, around 700 are taking actual deals. So I've taken one deal, but only 400, which is 10%, is taking deals from 3 different clients. And so what we want to do is we want to increase the number of storage providers that are taking deals from multiple clients. And so today, our programs that we'll present are here to promote and help you in getting to taking on more deals. And what it will take is to collaborate as a community, which means that, here there's multiple storage providers in the room. I encourage you to talk to each other, introduce yourself to each other, to build the relationships, because if you want to apply for Filecoin Plus, the data cap application process, you do have to store multiple copies with other storage providers. And so it's recommended for you to build those relationships so that you can trade your deals with each other. And that's currently what's happening across the globe. We see storage providers in Australia working together with storage providers in France and the Netherlands and San Diego. And I would love to see more Korean storage providers participate in that. And we can help you with introductions, but it starts here. So I want to talk a couple of things. There's a lot going on, but I recommend everyone to go to sp.filecoin.io, make it your homepage. This is where we will post all the new programs that we're working on. We also are looking at building more knowledge base articles and programs we've built with hardware vendors and so on. Follow us on Twitter and sign up for the newsletter. So every month we'll have like a newsletter coming out with very focused updates on storage provider related issues or items. Second, we also have built new lending programs with Dharma, CoinList, and Anchorage. If you want to leverage, they have 20% or less collateral requirements. So as you are looking for pledge, you want to accelerate your growth, you can reach out to these vendors. They have built special Filecoin lending programs. In collaboration with our hardware vendors, one of our strategies is to continue to collaborate with the actual hardware vendors that you're so dependent on. So we work very closely with AMD, the head of blockchain, who, by the way, is running a Filecoin node. AMD is running Filecoin, Seagate is running Filecoin, which is amazing. We have the hardware manufacturers collaborating with us, and they're actually here in the room, some of them. And Seagate has actually built a special leasing program. They just released it in the US. It would be good to let them know that you're interested as well, or let me know. It's basically, it gives you the option to lease hardware instead of having to purchase and spend CapEx, you're spending OpEx, right? It reduces your risk as well, and you can get it straight from the storage hardware manufacturer. We'll continue to collaborate with the hardware manufacturers to optimize the hardware for the sealing and the storage side. I'll let Angelo talk later today, but we've released some new programs. I would like to see hands. Anyone who signed up for Evergreen, the Filecoin.io in the room? Anyone? No? Okay, then we'll listen to Angelo. I definitely recommend you. These are basically free deals. So if you want free deals today that will give you the 10x multiplier in token rewards, please sign up, get registered, and work with the other storage provider ecosystem that are taking free deals. Second, we have a new Slingshot program that Angelo will talk about as well, but this is version 3, which is where we pay Filecoin for people preparing the data before storing it into the network. These are public data sets, and there is a list of public data sets that you can choose from. Angelo will talk about how much we pay the storage provider ecosystem. And then we have our colleague Vuk, who's going to talk about Filgram. One of the things that we heard in the last year is that storage providers want a way to promote their business to other storage providers in the ecosystem. So Filgram lists all the miner IDs. You can go out there and claim your miner ID only if you can sign it with your key. And then you can add your logo, and you can add your information, your website, your contact information, so other storage providers in the ecosystem can find you. So this is, look at it as the Yelp, or our goal is to create it like an Airbnb style interface, essentially, with this. So customers can also find you, and then eventually, it becomes its own platform. So where do we go from here? there's a lot of other programs that we'll talk about today, but most importantly, today, as I mentioned, we are not just building a storage infrastructure anymore. We are building the foundation for decentralized data centers. And I think that's very important, is that as we start with storage, as I started off by saying, hey, 15 years ago, Amazon started off by saying, we're going to create this S3 bucket, cheap and deep, archive repository. Well, guess that's where we are today with Filecoin. And this is where we're going. A whole stack of services, a whole stack of capabilities that will become the next gen cloud infrastructure built by the community. And that's where we are driving our roadmaps. That's how we are focused very deeply on how we can get smart contracts out, and then decentralized compute, and then eventually build the bridges that are necessary with the other stacks to give you the full stack to provide storage services and compute services to your enterprise. So how to connect with us? Please don't forget, reach us at filecoinproject.slack.com. We live and breathe on Slack. And I know that's not always easy. If Slack is not your thing, let me know. We can look at other alternatives in Korea, but if you have a question, send us an email at storageproviders@protocol.ai, or go to our website and connect with us. We're here to help. We're a small team with a huge ecosystem. We do what we can, but we want to thank you, and I want to thank you personally for believing in our stack and supporting our network, because we want this to become a huge, we want this to become life-changing, right, for all of us. And I know this is it's a long road, but we've made a tremendous amount of progress in just 2 years. And I want to thank you all for that. So thanks so much. One more question. So I want to introduce Ching. So Ching, come on stage. So Ching is actually, she works in our team from Protocol Labs, and she's here to help you from a business development perspective, because we realize that it's really hard to connect with Protocol Labs and the Filecoin Foundation. And so Ching, maybe you can introduce yourself, give a quick update on your background.
Yes, seems like not working.
Oh, let me see. Oh, there you go.
There you go. 안녕하세요. So thank you. My name is Ching. I used to working for SP back then in Asia. So I knew the pain point, from all the SPs, how they want to grow and how they want to develop in the ecosystem. So I joined the PL, and I want to help you guys. So my role is for SPs, who is interested, join Filecoin ecosystem. I'll help them to connecting to the resource you need and getting them on board. And second of all, if you already become SP, we want to grow in the entire ecosystem. We want to onboarding real data, right? But I know there's a lot of information out there, a lot of programs you can join. It might be a little bit overwhelmed sometimes, but you can reach out to me always, and then I will help you to go through the process and link you to the right person to talk to, and then recommending you the right program to join as well. So we have a lot going on in the ecosystem, and later on we have a lot of projects coming up in the presentations, and we're going to dive in deep. But yeah, just a quick intro, and then happy to help you all, and then we really want to make the ecosystem grow together. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ching.
Thank you.
네, 스테판의 강연 잘 들으셨습니다. 이 경쟁력 있는 파일코인과 기업에서의 활용, 그리고 한국에서의 커뮤니티 형성을 독려해 주셨죠. 좋은 말씀 감사합니다. 다음으로는 Overview of the Filecoin Foundation, 파일코인 재단 개요를 주제로 말씀해 주실 클라라를 무대 위로 모시겠습니다. 힘찬 박수 부탁드립니다.
Annyeonghaseyo again. It's so great to see all of you guys. So today I wanted to talk about the Filecoin Foundation. I know that it is confusing in the ecosystem. There's a lot of different organizations involved. I wanted to first start off by telling you guys the history of the Filecoin Foundation. Do I press this to slide? are there slides? Oh, okay. So first off, the history of the Filecoin Foundation is it was started as an idea in 2017 during the launch of the Filecoin white paper. It was said that the foundation is set up to help long-term governance of the Filecoin community. And so we are the largest treasury holders of Filecoin. However, the Filecoin Foundation didn't really staff up until 2020, where myself, my co-founder Megan, and also our board chair Marta, we really started to hire a team and really think about what are the long-term needs to make sure that Filecoin can be used by everyone in the world, how we can ensure that people can have fair governance when they're participating, how we can make sure the network is secure, and also how we can really increase the participation of all of you guys here today as storage providers. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the work of the foundation. So today, the foundation is around 60 full-time employees all around the world, and we also support the ecosystem that is around 2,000 people from all across our network, right? From developers to you guys, all the way to startups that are building on our technology. And so over the last year, we've participated in a number of events, from hackathons, even here, ETHSol. We had a builder event. We had a metaverse night. Yesterday, we had a K-pop event taking place. So we've engaged over 10,000 developers because we believe that we need as much technical talent to have the best tools for all of you guys to build on. We also have awarded over 140 developer grants. And so if you are technical, if you're a developer, even if you are a storage provider and you want better tooling, we have funded that. We fund 140 grants. That's nearly over 20 grants a month and more. And we're only accelerating that number as our community grows. I also wanted to talk a little bit about our startups. Who is building on our technology? Why is this so exciting? As you guys know, Filecoin is the main storage layer for Web3. Together with IPFS, we not only support Web2 client data from coming on board, but we're also trying to make sure that we can be on the cutting edge of what is happening in Web3. And so we have products like our friends at Audius, who are building a decentralized streaming platform for musicians. So they are using IPFS and Filecoin to think about music storage and making sure that musicians can have full ownership of their data. We also have tools like Huddle. Huddle is a decentralized video conference tool. It's used incredibly well in areas where there is low internet connectivity. And we also have Numbers. Numbers is actually a photo application. And so if you guys have ever seen photo manipulated, fake news, fake photos, Numbers actually uses our technology to make sure that we can authenticate where photos came from, and that we can prove that a photo came from the right source. And so you can store a number of video and photo products using Numbers. Slate is a user-friendly storage on Filecoin, on the Filecoin network. So if you're familiar with Dropbox or Google Drive, think about Slate as that really easy-to-use solution, more client-facing, that you can use just for storage of your own data. And finally, Secure Finance. They were great partners yesterday in hosting the K-pop Day here in Korea. They are an integrated financial transaction platform, and they are really trying to build a lot of the DeFi capabilities onto our network. And so these are just a couple of examples of how our incredible set of startups are using our technology. And I also want to talk about how startups enter our ecosystem. So usually we have hackathons or events or developer grants, 240 developer grants I mentioned earlier, where developers are thinking about what to build. And then we also have a number of partnerships with accelerators, from Techstars to Longhash, a number of accelerators here in Asia to graduate those startups. And then a lot of those companies actually go off on their own. They raise additional capital, but they're all using Filecoin technology as an underpinning layer. And so to date, we're looking at graduating around 100 companies by the end of this year. So Vuk is actually going to speak after me talking about FEM, Filecoin Virtual Machine. This is a really exciting announcement because it brings DeFi capability on smart contracts using Filecoin technology. And so Filecoin Virtual Machine allows us to do things like cross-chain interoperability with projects like Ethereum, Solana, Near, anything you can imagine. And we can also think about an entire application suite of DeFi products that can now operate with Filecoin. So this is going to be huge. Our team has been hard at work to make sure that this can be the best experience possible and also building out a number of DeFi partnerships. There we go, back. So this is a little bit about where the state of our network is as of this month. You can see here on the top, we have 18 exabytes of available total storage power. In fact, that is actually 1% of the entire storage capacity in the world right now. And if you remember, Filecoin has only been around for 22 months. So this is incredible that we've, together as a community, covered nearly 1% of all total cloud storage, and we're only growing thanks to all of you guys here in this room. We have 4,065 storage providers all around the world. We're growing 29 storage providers a week. And we have programs like ESPA. We hope we can have similar programs here in Asia to help storage providers who are new to the community learn how to be a storage provider, how to grow, and how to also build your own business, right? Whether you're a small-sized entrepreneur or maybe you're an existing data center that really wants to learn how to use Filecoin. We also are the leading storage provider for NFTs. In fact, if you own an NFT, a non-fungible token, you're likely already using IPFS and Filecoin. So we have a tool called NFT.storage. I'll talk about next, but that has 80 million NFTs stored on it to this day, and we're growing by 2 million NFTs a week. So these are incredible numbers. We also have 5.7 million deals, 0.2 million each week, and also close to 140 petabytes of network storage utilized right now. So one of our big priorities this year is bringing clients to the table, from enterprise clients you heard about earlier, doing partnerships to make sure that we can have as many incredible clients store on Filecoin. So today, I spoke about this just now. We have a product called NFT.storage. NFT.storage makes it really easy to store NFTs on Filecoin. We have a saying, not on IPFS, not your NFT. Today, if you remember, if you do not have anything like an NFT stored on Filecoin or IPFS, if the network goes down, people lose their NFTs, and NFTs can be worth a lot. You've probably heard of Bored Apes, a number of these projects where people are paying a lot of money for NFTs. So we really make sure that NFTs can stay resilient and that the entire creator economy that's built on NFTs, we can be a cornerstone of that at the infrastructure level. I also wanted to talk about some of our work. We actually have two arms of the Filecoin Foundation. We have Filecoin Foundation and Filecoin Foundation for the Decentralized Web. FFDW is actually a 501c3 in the US, so we are a public charity, and we give grants to a number of groups that are doing really great charitable work because we believe that we want to store humanity's most important information. So one of the nonprofit partners we funded is Starling Labs, based out of Stanford University. And through Starling, I want to talk about two use cases. Number one is we worked with the USC Shoah Foundation with Starling to upload 55,000 testimonials of Holocaust survivors, because we believe that today, something like the Holocaust should never be forgotten. And the way that we make sure that those testimonials are permanent is by storing it on Filecoin. So we actually took those physical videos, some of them are very old, and we put all of that on Filecoin. Right now, another exciting partnership with Starling we're doing is making sure that what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, the war that is happening there, we can also make sure that those terrible things that are happening can be documented, so one day it can be used in international criminal court. Today, a lot of footage, people may not know where the source came from. We believe it's so important that we keep copies of this. And unfortunately, as you know, cloud storage is expensive. So a lot of these nonprofits, they cannot afford to store a lot of this critical information. So this is where our nonprofit arm, FFDW, we can give funding to make sure that important nonprofits that are really trying to document everything from human rights to war crimes, they can use our technology to do so. And that's a part that I'm very, very proud of. Another use case of Filecoin is actually in the public sector. And so actually last December, we partnered with New York City's Chief Technology Officer to think about the use of Filecoin in a pilot on open data. So you imagine today, cities all around the world are thinking about this topic of open data. They want to make the data around the city more transparent for members of the community to understand. It could be water sanitation, it could be air pollution, it could be environmental data. However, when there is a government that might come into power that people don't trust, it's hard to think about whether that data might be manipulated, right? A government might have a priority, and citizens deserve to have the authentic layer of the data that came from the source. So with New York City, we actually uploaded New York City's open data and preserved it so that today anyone in New York that wants, or even anyone in the world that wants to see data from New York City, they have the authentic source that came and was documented that doesn't belong to New York City, but belongs to the people. And we're actually very excited to do a number of these partnerships, even more this year, with other governments around the world to really talk about not only data storage, but also the use case of data that is really authentic to citizens all around the world that deserve to have data transparency. So you can see here, this is a little bit about some of the work we did there. And then finally, I wanted to talk about Internet Archive. I don't know if many of you guys are familiar with Internet Archive. They are a great nonprofit. They're based in San Francisco. And we actually gave Internet Archive funding of $10 million last year to make sure that they can help preserve humanity's most important information in the lab. So one thing that Internet Archive has been doing for years is every single day, it scrapes the internet and it preserves a copy of a website. So if you have internet pages from 1998, you can still go and use a tool called Wayback Machine to find that. And they store all of that data today. They are looking at using Filecoin IPFS. We're helping them along to make sure that today, when we think about information on the internet, it is just as important as the way we think about preserving information in physical libraries. Today, we go to the library to find information. Unfortunately, today's internet is not fair. It's not democratic. There's a lot of advertising companies that pay money to have their data seem more important than others. And so we want to make sure that the public has access to important things like internet history. Even when startups fail, we have a copy of what was said in the startup on the net. And they are all using Filecoin right now as that storage layer to make sure that we can be that backbone for the internet past, but also the future internet moving forward. Also, I want to talk about the metaverse. So the metaverse is a really exciting area that we're heavily invested in. In fact, you'll hear from a few other people later this afternoon about some of the interesting partnerships there. Filecoin is actually right now the only storage solution that is built to scale with the metaverse. So we have a startup called Mona that has been doing a number of experiments with us to build different experiences and storing a lot of these virtual experiences on Filecoin. As you know, graphics, AR, VR, they take a lot of computational power to run. And so it's really exciting that we can also be on the cutting edge of being that storage solution for the exciting startups that are launching there. We also want to talk about governance. Many of you guys have been involved in participating in Filecoin improvement proposals. As you know, Filecoin is not owned by anyone. It really is an ecosystem where everyone should have fair participation. We run governance at the Filecoin Foundation, from programs like Filecoin Plus for data caps, all the way to the Filecoin improvement proposals. And we want to make sure that everyone in the community, regardless of where you're based, regardless of language barriers, can participate and weigh in on whether key decisions are important for the protocol. Even when we decided to rename miners to storage providers, that was a transparent Filecoin improvement proposal that was voted upon by all of you guys as a community. So we want to make sure that you guys here in Korea can participate as much as possible. And we have a lot of events happening in governance. We have a governance summit that we'll be hosting coming up that will be virtual, but we want to make sure that we can make it accessible for all of you guys here in this room in Korea, make sure we can translate it so all of you guys feel like you can participate and also be key decision makers for us when we have important changes in our technology. Last but not least, I got this question earlier. I wanted to tell you about Filecoin Green. Filecoin Green is a partnership we have with a number of groups, Protocol Labs and other players in the Filecoin ecosystem to make sure that we can be on track to be the most sustainable blockchain. And that doesn't mean just us. We also want to make sure that we can uplift other companies, we can uplift even others outside of Web3 to understand the potential of using blockchain to help save the environment. As you know, a lot of groups today are thinking about ESG, environmental standards. We've recently just announced an ESG report at our Paris event. And we have sustainable blockchain summits happening all around the world where we talk about our work. We also have funded out of the foundation ways that all of you guys have been able to be more environmental in your day-to-day operations. So in Amsterdam, we have a storage provider, Decent, who wanted to experiment with running all of their data centers using solar panels. And we gave Decent a grant to be able to do that. And it's very incredible if you walk through it to see all the storage, to see all of the solar panels on the roof. We also have been involved in a number of funds to make sure that we can be as climate conscious and environmental as possible, including the Crypto Climate Accord, which is an alliance between a number of crypto companies to make sure we are sustainable. So if you go to Filecoin Green's website, which we can share later on as a follow-up, you can learn about ways to get involved. It could be you speaking up about how you're being environmental in your day-to-day practices. You can also apply for grants to think about tooling that makes it more transparent to not just the community, but also to governments or to the general public about the way that Filecoin is sustainable and how we're different from other cryptocurrencies that may not be as energy conscious. Great, and then last but not least, I don't think my slide is proceeding, but I wanted to share with you guys our next big event happening here in Asia. So like I said, this is actually our biggest gathering to date with all of you guys here for the storage provider community. We've never done anything like this in Asia, so you guys are ground zero. But actually, in a month and a half, we will have our biggest ecosystem conference in Asia called Filecoin Singapore. And we're going to have the most important players in all of Asia come together. And we have over 100 incredible speakers that we are announcing actually this week on our website. We have over 16 side events happening. So if there's a topic you're interested in that you want to deep dive on, there is a side event for that. We also have just all the community from our team, from other startups being involved. They will all be there. So as a special token of thanks, after you guys conclude today, we are going to give all of you guys free tickets to Filecoin Singapore if you can make it. We will be sharing that information out. We hope we can see all of you guys there. So with that, I wanted to wrap up, and I will stick around the end of today to answer questions. Thank you.
네, 파일코인 재단의 창립이사 클라라 이사님의 강연이었습니다. 이 파일코인이 22개월 만에 전 세계 스토리지의 1%를 장악한 건 아주 주목할 만한 성과인 것 같습니다. ESG 경영에 따라서 공정하고 투명하게 지속 가능한 기업이 되겠다고 말씀해 주셨습니다. 웹사이트 공지도 말씀하신 대로 꼭 참고하시기 바랍니다. 다음으로 파일마인에 관해 말씀해 주실 버글 무대 위로 모시겠습니다. 뜨거운 박수로 환영해 주십시오.
Yes. Okay, great. So yeah, this is for Phil Singapore. Clara is going to distribute some coupons that you can use on Eventbrite, and you'll have entrance for free. What I'm going to talk today is Philmine and the work that we were doing around abstracting away all the technology that we have built at Protocol Labs and creating a cloud that would be like the next iteration of the cloud. In a way, creating the Web3 cloud. My name is Vuk. I am part of the Filecoin IPFS core team, also founder of Philmine, which is an organization that is being incubated inside Protocol Labs. Before that, I worked a lot in the Ethereum ecosystem, spent most of my time building either protocols or development tools on top of protocols that help the entire ecosystem evolve by building the infrastructure. So I first want to talk about the cloud and what the cloud actually is so that we actually understand where we are with the current technology stack that we have built. At this essence, the cloud is just storage and compute. So basically just a bunch of resources that you can use to do some computation and to actually store some data that was either taken as an input for that computation or it's an output of a computation. And that storage is basically just keeping track of the changes of data that are happening through the computing. In the Web2 realm, storage is based on massive NASes, and compute is enabled by VMs. So basically, any computing that happens today, whatever you do on your phone, is most likely going to land on a virtual machine, and that is going to run on infrastructure that is owned by AWS, Google, or all the other big tech companies. Every product is built on top of that. So basically, anything that you use on your phone is going to interact with some kind of virtual machine. Of course, that is all abstracted away for the users. It is also abstracted away for the developers that are actually building applications on top. So most of the people don't actually know how it works, and this is how it should be, because this is the infrastructure layer of computing that needs to be abstracted away for the developers building on top. So the developer that is actually building the use case should not worry at all about this, should instead use something like Firebase or applications like databases on top that are being managed by some logic that is run on those cloud providers. Now, Web2 in the past 70 years grew a lot, and it's still growing very fast. It is growing after 70 years, 30% year over year, which for something like such a big vertical, it's extreme, like 30% year over year. And when we are talking about hundreds of billions, it's really fast. Now, there are some issues with the Web2 cloud still, and those are issues that we are trying to tackle with the new technology stack that we have built. First of all, that the infrastructure is locking you in. This is on multiple layers, from application layers to the data that you are actually keeping on a particular cloud that you're not able to move to a different cloud because it is very hard to actually move stuff from different clouds. Also, at some point, the cloud providers figured out that this is a very good way for them to retain you. So like egress ingress cost is very expensive. So most of the developers are just trying not to get out of that cloud. We are seeing a bit of innovation when we are talking about hybrid cloud, but still this is very slow, and it is not really showing that we as humanity are going in a direction where cloud is going to be open for everyone. Now, the issue is also that most of the developer tools were built by one organization, and that organization is keeping a monopoly on them. So, for example, Beanstalk or any machine learning product that is running on AWS, that is not open source. That is running as a product on AWS, and by default, it's using resources that are provided by AWS. So what AWS is doing is they are selling you resources at the end of the day in form of computing, but with a cost of 20, 30x, because they are giving you a little layer of tooling. This is completely wrong, and we think that Web3 will be changing those. Of course, app lock-ins. Now, if I'm a developer that is building on something like Firebase, and I'm storing data on AWS, because of course, like the developer tools that AWS built are great for me, it's almost impossible for me to provide users the way to share data between different apps. So as a developer, I just use that data for my app, and I'm not able to share it with any other app, because this is how the cloud was built, and for me as a developer, it's way too complicated to actually do it. And again, like developers that are building use cases should not be worrying about the infrastructure side. So they are not the ones deciding whether they should or not store data on multiple clouds and worry about that. That should be like given by default. Now, there are many other issues that are like becoming more relevant recently, which is the legal structure, where most of the data is actually owned by one large government that is making decisions that are good just for them. And also, when we are talking about geopolitical instability, that is recently like very relevant. What's happening is that like particular countries are able to cut off a country from the internet completely overnight, because most of the companies were using the cloud products that are provided by companies that are incorporated in those countries. And we can argue about geopolitical situations, but like at the end of the day, like no one should be left without a service, especially not without the data that they actually collected and actually stored. So like if I'm storing some data on Facebook, no matter where I live, as a user, I should be able to actually retrieve the data. And that is not absolutely true, and it's getting worse. Yeah, of course, like the incentives are, again, non-aligned with the users. So at the end of the day, like AWS wants to sell more resources, and that's what's going to be happening, because they are a very large organization that has a lot of power to actually make that true. And of course, issues around like having governments that are able to actually have power on citizens that are outside of their governments, and that should not be possible. Now, Web3 solves most of those, but it is very hard because we need to change the abstraction and paradigm on many layers. This includes the infrastructure layer, but also dev tools. So like at the end of the day, like if I'm going to build an app that is going to do something on Filecoin, it's not going to be on Filecoin. It's going to be on a dev tool that is using Filecoin under the hood, and that is going to be abstracted away in a way that it has also a lot of opinions on how apps should be built. To put this in the Web2 perspective, we need something like Firebase. We need something like managed database that is allowing developers to have all those characteristics and retain the power of Web3, but without having all the complexity associated with actually building with a new paradigm. Now, there are also very interesting things like the fact that if data is replicated around the globe and encrypted, I can actually keep ownership over the data because I'm the one that is keeping the keys, and the data that is stored in multiple locations is not accessible by anyone else other than myself. Which also helps with preventing the fragmentation of the internet, which we are very close, because if you look at what's happening in the world right now, like we are very likely to see in the next 5 to 10 years, one part of the internet either being severely locked or being completely detached, which means that we would not be able to get to particular data that is stored in those parts of the internet. So in Web3, how compute and storage works is that you have different networks that are abstracting away those resources and are being managed by a network. So if we want to make decisions that are good for the users at the end of the day, what we need to have is networks with particular governance in place that helps us make decisions together, rather than have one single big organization that is for profit that makes decisions just to increase the shareholder value, which is by increasing the profits that that organization makes. Now, the issue with networks is that they are very complex, and there is a lot of complexity that needs to be managed somehow. So currently, those networks look like something like this, where you have a bunch of networks that are running individually particular workloads. We could have on one side IPFS, on the other side Filecoin. We could have some computing networks, which is what you see in the center. But the issue is that all of those right now work kind of in silos. So you don't have miners that are actually running multiple networks and actually allowing computing to happen on the data. What you have right now is just miners running one particular thing. In fact, if you ask a miner what they do, they're going to tell you, I'm a Filecoin miner, I'm an Ethereum miner. They're not going to tell you, I'm a computing miner or I'm a storage miner. So the issue again is that if you have storage and compute completely decoupled, you're not able to actually do computing on real data. You're just able to do computing on some arbitrary data that you get from somewhere, which usually is going to be AWS, because right now you don't have the storage working on the same miners. Now, what we want is to actually take this disconnected world where compute and storage is, and we want to connect it to each other, and we do that by running multiple workloads on the same machines and allowing them to get exposure to the data that is stored on those machines. And the main way of doing that is by having common infrastructure that is shared between storage and compute. So that means that we have miners that are focused on storage, which is Filecoin, but it is also IPFS, because we want some data to be readily available. On the other hand, the compute infrastructure is also important. So we want to have the ability to run a workload like Lipe or Aleo or Fluence. But those workloads should be run on common infrastructure so that all of those computing nodes can actually get to the same data. And with that, we are building the interoperability that we see in DeFi today. So on one side, we have computing. On the other side, we have storage. And what we want to make sure is that those are decoupled, because those should be run by different personas. So if I'm doing storage mining, that is completely different from doing computing mining. Because storage mining is very important to be redundant. It's very important to be in a data center. It's very important to be backed by USPs. It's very important to have like a bunch of redundancy, because at the end of the day, some data is at stake, and you don't ever want to lose data. On the other hand, compute miners should only be cheap, because compute miners should have a lot of energy, a lot of GPUs, and should be able to compute a lot of information. But they should still have some exposure to some data, because the computation that they do is going to be on that data. But what you want to make sure is that the storage part is tightly connected to the compute part, because whenever the computational job happens, it needs to happen on real data. And then it needs to be returned back to the storage providers. Now, I want to spend a minute talking about why I think we are in a particularly good time in history to be working on these problems, and why I think in the next year to 2 years we are going to see an explosion in computing. Because we are getting to something very similar to what we saw in the DeFi realm, which was DeFi summer. What happened in DeFi summer is that when COVID happened, a lot of printing started happening as well, and with that, a lot of inflation was happening, and at the same time, interest rates were low. So what happened is that a lot of people had to figure out ways of actually moving the liquidity they had to somewhere else. And what happened is that we had DeFi, which was pretty small back then. It was like $500 million being locked in DeFi back then. And after the DeFi summer, we saw an explosion to 20 billion. When that happened, it put a lot of attention in the DeFi space, which means that a lot of VCs started considering startups that were previously non-VC fundable, and a lot of innovation started happening in this space. Right now, we have a time where we are going to see a lot of influx of computational resources being funneled into something, which is right now not compute autumn, because it still needs to come. But what we are trying to do is build the technology stack that is going to allow us to coordinate all the resources that are going to be available in the coming 6 months to 2 years. And the reason for that is that if you look at what's happening with GPUs today, the price is 3 times less than what it used to be 6 months ago. The crypto crash made most of proof-of-work mining non-profitable, and the emergence of Ethereum 2.0 is going to dump another 6 billion of compute resources to the market, which needs to be somehow coordinated, and right now there is nothing to coordinate that. On top of all of that, we have a lot of supply coming from CPUs and GPUs not being shipped to particular regions where those regions were sanctioned. There is still a lot of hardware being exported from China, because there is a lot of supply of hardware that was still there from the days that the mining was legal in China. And on top of all of that, we have NVIDIA that still has like 200 million in inventory that needs to empty before the end of the year. And when we get to the end of the year, we are also going to see a new generation of GPUs that are going to be probably 2 to 3 times faster. So we are going to see a lot of computing resources not being coordinated that are going to be dumped in the market. And someone will need to definitely coordinate that. which is what we are trying to do with the stack that we're building. Now, if you compare those numbers with DeFi Summer, we are relatively close. Actually, we are even better off than what we were with the DeFi. But the issue now is that we are not anymore trying to coordinate bits of information which are related to how much money I have on a particular chain. Rather, we are trying to coordinate storage, computing, networking, because all of those are very hard computer science problems that need to be solved. So it might not be as fast as DeFi Summer, but we have everything we need to actually trigger that event. But still, we have networks that are not coordinated, that are separate, that need to be connected, and that's what we are trying to do. Now, on the same, at the same time, what we are seeing is that still miners are not able to run computing workloads because computing is much harder than just running a node. Because you're not just following blocks and doing a bit of logic, you're actually working, waiting for a job that you will execute and return the results back. So you need to know where to get data from. You need to know where to push data back to. Then you need to know what you need to execute. You need to make sure that you have all the drivers installed. You need to make sure that you're actually using all the libraries that are necessary for that workload. So it's a pretty hard problem. Now, what we want to do is just act as that infrastructure layer that is allowing other people to build on top. So at the end of the day, for the miner, what's going to happen is they are going to run some software that will allow them to run multiple computing networks and see like how much rewards they made in the past 24 hours, see how many rewards they made in the past month, know how many tokens they got in all the different currencies, and how to actually convert those to the currency that they want. So maybe as a miner, I want to be long on particular networks. For example, I believe that library is going to go up. I just set up so that all of my library is going to be capped in my treasury. But at the same time, I might want to like short some other network and just sell as soon as I get the rewards from that network. So how it works is that, again, on one side, we have the storage providers, and you can see the storage providers on the bottom. And on top, you have the computing providers. So those are very different personas. And you can imagine the computing providers being more like proof-of-work miners, like Ethereum miners, and the storage providers being more data center-oriented enterprise storage people. But at the same time, you also need some resources, because in order to mine Web3, you need to have some tokens that you're going to deploy and be part of the network. In the case of Filecoin, that is Phil, and that is used as collateral for the storage. But in the case of the other computing networks, that is, for example, Lipeer that you need to delegate in order for your miners to actually get workloads. We're trying to abstract all of that away for the miner so that the miner can just focus on providing infrastructure and running infrastructure efficiently, and everything else should be abstracted by a protocol that coordinates all of these networks. And most importantly, we want to work very closely with the computing networks so that the final user, which in this case is going to be the developer, similarly to how like the Firebase developer is in the Web2 realm, to actually have everything he needs to actually be able to deploy his workloads on those networks to the miners running those networks. How it works in the case of storage, on one side we have the data, but as probably most of you know, you can't just store data on Filecoin. So you need to actually compute over that data. That workload in the Filecoin ecosystem is called sealing. And when you have sealed that sector, you need to put down some collateral, and then you can only store it on the storage side. But this is different from how the default way of Filecoin mining works, where you are doing everything as a miner. But since we don't believe that compute and storage should be mixed, and that each of the personas should be focused on one, we have decoupled this, and we are already using our network of compute miners to actually do the sealing, onboard the data, and send the data back to the Filecoin network, which in a way is like the perfect compute use case that you can have. And it is also helping us onboard massive amounts of data to the Filecoin network, which is helping out the entire ecosystem. A very important role in this ecosystem is also the token holder, which is basically staking in our protocol and getting rewards that are being split between the compute provider, the storage provider, and the token holder. So at the end of the day, like this is going to be a protocol that allows everyone to be happy by actually having the coordination between those entities. So the compute provider is going to get paid to do the computing, but because the storage provider then can only focus on storage, which is a very simple activity at the end of the day, which is like adding hard drives full of racks on fiber that has some redundancy, and you can keep doing that for a while without having to worry about your ceiling pipeline, how much computing you need, or where do you find the data, or where do you find the data cap, and so on. And at the end of the day, all of that happens with the pure protocol, where you just run some software and the data is getting to your storage node. Right now, we support only Filecoin, but we are going to be supporting IPFS as well. We are working with IPFS networks that are trying to build the incentive layer for IPFS. That includes Filecoin Saturn, and some other smaller teams that are right now working on that. While on the computing side, it is a bit more complicated, so I'm trying to simplify it here. It's not really like this. There is a lot of complexity that is abstracted away because we need to keep it simple on this slide. But in the case of Filecoin, it's basically you do a computing workload, which in this case is being sent by a storage provider. And you seal that data and you just store it back on Filecoin. But in the case of some other computing workload, what you're doing is you're pulling data from IPFS and Filecoin, and in that way you're making storage providers earn more by allowing them to actually be the source of the data. And then you're doing the computing, and then you're again sealing the data and storing it back to the Filecoin network. Now, if you wanted to do this just on Filecoin, it would be super difficult for you because you would need to have a bunch of logic running on the storage provider, and you would need to understand also like the networking between that storage provider and whoever else is doing the computing. And right now, storage providers are just focused on storage, and they're doing that pretty well, and we think that they should double down on that. If you want early access for the computing network, we are currently in a trusted network environment. So we have a network of miners that we trust, that we are working with. We are going to be launching publicly probably in 3 weeks from now. The regions where we are starting is Europe. We are very interested in Korea. We feel that Korea can actually be a very big market because it has everything that China had, but at the same time, it's not as regulated as China. And of course, the US. For the storage side, you should go to this link, which is a landing page to Filmine, and you should just apply to get access. We want to make sure that the storage providers that we are working with are very reputable because what we are doing is we are giving them a lot of liquidity that is being staked into our protocol, and we need to make sure that those storage providers are going to be there no matter what, and that the collateral is not going to be lost. We have onboarded more than a petabyte of data. We have already 12 million USD staked in our protocol, and we are supporting 3 computing networks. And we are working also on a 4th computing network that would be run in parallel with the other workloads. So also something very important that I mentioned that I did not cover in the previous slides is the fact that when you're running multiple computing networks, you're able to earn many more rewards. And all of that complexity is being abstracted away for you as a miner. Because you should not be actually orchestrating the workloads on top of your machines. You should just be providing the computing. And someone else should figure out what are the workloads that you can actually run in one particular moment on your machines based on what data you have, what kind of computing resources the networks require, what kind of hardware acceleration you have on your components, and how fast and how close you are to some particular data set. So yeah, thanks. We are also hiring and would love to have a team in Korea. So like if you are someone that run engineering teams before, we are very interested to talk to you. And thank you for your time.
네, 감사합니다. 이제 기존의 HTTPS와는 완전히 다른 IPFS 기술을 상세히 설명해 주셨습니다. 한국 지역의 한국 시장에 많은 관심 부탁드립니다. 이제는 보고그룹의 토니 리 회장님의 강연이 있겠습니다. 뜨거운 환호와 함께 무대로 모시겠습니다.
Well, I cannot express my gratitude and how honored I am to be the part of this great wave of Web 3.0 with IPFS and Filecoin. 저는 한국말하고 영어를 섞어서 말씀드리겠습니다. 정말 감동스러운 시간이고요. IPFS, Filecoin, 우리 웹3의 큰 변화 속에 함께 있을 수 있어서 감사하고 또 영광으로 생각을 합니다. Vogo Networks, we are one of SPs. 저희는 SP 중에 하나고요. We have a maximum capacity for 100 terabyte per day basis. 그래서 하루에 100테라의 실링 파워를 가지고 있고, and targeted for the maximum capacity of storage for about more than 40 petabyte. 그래서 40페타 이상의 스토리지를 가질 수 있는 1차 시설물을 저희가 투자해서 가지고 있습니다. I understand some of your SPs doing business in Korea. 제가 이야기로는 이제 여기 계신 분들 중에 SP인 분들도 계시다고 생각을 합니다. But our business goal is we have 4 agenda to cover in about 15 to 20 minutes. 20분 동안 한 4가지 얘기를 오늘 하려고 합니다. First of all, that doesn't mean that we only focusing on this field of business. 그러니까 저희가 딱 요 일만을 한다는 게 아니라 이 4가지는 저희가 하는 일의 종류를 뜻하게 됩니다. So the first one, this is our roadmap as a developer. So not only as a SP, we also have a tendency and nature of developing software and applications. 그 저희 회사는 단순하게 SP만 하는 것이 아니라 개발을 하는 어떤 그 성향을 가진 분들이 많이 있어서 저희가 이 개발의 로드맵을 가지고 지금 개발도 열심히 하고 있습니다. And this is our stage, public data storage. You'll understand what this is. Filecoin Public Storage Service and engaging content owners to join the Filecoin networks as their primary storage. 그래서 뭐 이거는 다들 이해하시겠지만 저희가 이런 스토리지를 만들어서 클라이언트의 데이터를 받아서 이제 비즈니스를 한다. 이거는 가장 기본적인 것이 될 거고 저희가 현재 비다라는 이름의 그 저희 어떤 패키지를 개발을 하고 있습니다. The private data storage Vita that actually is supposed to mean life. So it has all the life important data stored in this Filecoin storage. 그래서 인생을 살면서 이 비다라는 건 인생을 뜻하는 건데 그 안에 저희가 인생에서 가장 중요한 자료들을 집어넣는 하나의 창고, 보물 창고를 만드는 것이겠죠. 그래서 digital vault for private data, 이제 보물 창고가 만들어지는 거고요. Very important data and artifacts, 그러니까 어떤 고유 그 유품이라든지 뭐 도자기라든지 이런 것까지도 전부 다 저희가 할 수 있는 게 뭐 나중에 또 설명드리겠지만 어떤 NFT 베이스에서 올릴 수도 있는 환경도 될 거고요. And encrypted end-to-end, the transit and the rest, AES-256 basis. 그래서 저희는 그 AES-256배 그 인크립션 베이스로 해서 끝단에서 끝단까지 전부 다 인크립션을 집어넣은 데이터 그 핸들링을 개발을 하고 있습니다. And account credentials stored on user's device, not our server, and Web3 login enabled. 그래서 저희는 어떤 형태의 그 고객의 데이터건 그 개인 정보에 대한 로그인 데이터에 대한 뭐 비밀번호라든지 이런 걸 저희 쪽에서 갖지 않고 그거는 좀 엔드포인트에 있고 순수하게 그 보안과 이런 거 지킬 수 있도록 서비스를 만들고 있습니다. 저희 for the Vita service, we're actually working with a company called ChainSafe, and I believe they are one of the best developers for the Protocol Labs partner. And 저희가 그 ChainSafe라는 회사와 함께 개발을 하고 있는데 그들의 SDK와 그 기본을 가지고 이제 어플리케이션 개발을 하고 있습니다. 체인스위프트는 지금 프로토콜 랩사에 제가 알기로는 손꼽히는 최고의 그 디벨로핑 파트너 회사로 이해를 하고 있습니다. 아까 부탁드린 비디오를 좀 틀어주실 수 있을까요?
This is a quick demo of VIDA, a private digital vault. that you
네,
have
지금
developed
설명이 사실
using
영어로
to
나가고
interact
있는데
with
제가 알기로는 여기
users in
이
Filecoin.
설명 영어보다는 그건 저 안쪽에 계신 분들이 나중에 보시면 되고 한국말로 설명을 드리면 그 이해를 하시기에 이제 이거는 프로토콜이기 때문에 완제품이 아닙니다. 그래서 디자인은 좀 잊어버려 주시고요. 그래서 카카오라든지 아니면 어떤 다른 구글이라든지 자기가 기존에 쓰고 있던 그거를 통해서 로그인을 할 수도 있고 그래서 엔드포인트 단에서 지금 로그인을 하는 모습입니다.
For a quick demo, I'll use my Google ID.
그래서 어카운트를 추주하고
The main page of VIDA, as you can see here.
이게 이제 메인 페이지가 되는데 말씀드렸듯이
So I want to show you
디자인은 아무것도 안
Filecoin
들어간
process
겁니다.
in
예.
VIDA, your private digital vault.
그래서 저희가 폴더를 하나 만들어서
Folder is created and I
보고
can now
네트워크스라는
put my
폴더를 하나
password.
만들게 되고 그리고 자기 컴퓨터에서 업로드하고 싶은 파일을 선택을 합니다. 그럼 아까 폴더는 이제 저희 서비스 센터에 이제 만들어진 거고요. 그러면 이거는 아까도 말씀드렸지만 이제 업로드를 될 때 사실 그 중간에서도 해킹되는 수도 있는데 저희는 엔드포인트 단부터 인크립션이 들어가기 때문에 보안이 걸려서 들어가서 이거는 절대 해킹을 할 수가 없습니다.
The backend server, the encrypted file are uploaded, but not the real file, which means you only can see
지금
your
여기
data. but no
스크립트가
one
나가고 있는 대로 설명이 되고
If we go to
있습니다.
the three dot section of the files that we had uploaded, we'll
그리고
see there is
그거는 이제
option.
CID,
Our focus
그
is CID.
그 CID라는 어떤 개념의 아이디를 가지고선
Since the
자기
files are uploaded in
그
IPv6
디크립션
and
키를
500,
확인하고
but
그 키를
if you
가지고
want to
자기
download
파일을
from IPv6
액세스하고
network,
보고
you also
전부 다
need
할 수가
encryption
있게
key,
됩니다.
which proves that your data is secure, and you only have the full right of your private data.
그래서 뭐 네이버라든지 아니면 어떤 다른 어떤 그 제가 뭐 클라우드 서버를 쓰고 있을 때 제가 한번 사실 로그인을 하면 뭐 그런 일은 없기도 하겠지만 딴 사람이 어떤 와가지고선 로그인된 상태에서 파일을 어떻게 갖고 놓을 수도 있겠지만 이거는 그 파일 하나 하나에 대한 인크립션이 다 있고 키가 있어서 그럴 수는 없습니다. 뭐 간단하게 데모를 좀 보여드렸고요. 이제 그 다음에 저희가 타겟으로 하고 있는 CDN 서비스 Pinbytes, that's our next step up. And content delivery network, leveraging IPFS networks. 그래서 그 CDN을 통해서 저희가 데이터를 가장 가까운 곳에 갖다 놓고선 그 시간과 모든 액세스 타임을 최소화를 할 수 있게끔 만드는 건데, our storage customers get an additional benefit of using the Pinbytes, which can cache their contents close to users. 그래서 가까운데 그 액세스하는 시간, 이 타임이 많아지면은 그 지역에서 그 자료를 보는 사람들이 많아지면은 퍼블릭 데이터 같은 경우에는 다 내려놓고선 순식간에 볼 수 있게 하는 그런 부분을 말씀드리는 거고요. And performance leveraging customer IPFS and bring the cost down significantly compared to big players. That's about like Amazon service and something like that. 그러니까 아마존이나 이런 식으로 그 IDC 서비스를 사용을 할 때 굉장히 비싸죠. 근데 그거에 비해서 it's about $400 to $600 per like 6 terabyte monthly traffic. 그래서 한 달에 한 6테라를 쓰는데 400불에서 600불 정도. 그러면은 거의 한 30% 정도의 그 사용료만 내고 아주 저렴하게 사용을 할 수 있게 만들어준. 앞단에서도 이제 이게 성공적으로 가는 부분에 있어서 큰 기업들이 관심을 갖는 건 얼마나 싸지느냐, 그다음에 지금 서비스하고 똑같이 할 수 있느냐라는 이제 부분들을 말씀하신 부분이 있는데, 저희도 그런 베이스에서 가격을 이 정도까지 낮춰서 한다 그러면은 성공적으로 저희가 이 시장을 들어갈 수 있지 않겠느냐. More R&D for VOD, optimization, security, and etc. 그래서 비디오 디맨드라든지 그런 R&D를 지속적으로 저희가 하는 부분을 말씀드리게 되는 겁니다. 그 다음에 이제 and the final version for this roadmap will have continuous roadmap development. But 우리 계속적으로 제가 로드맵을 또 발전해 나가겠지만 fully support and participate Filecoin retrieval market. 그래서 리트리얼 마켓에 들어가는 건 저희가 아직 이니시에이티브가 덜 준비된 거는 프로토콜 랩사에서 더 확실한 레귤레이션이 나오게 되면 거기에 따라서 저희가 또 개발 로드맵이 만들어질 겁니다. 이게 저희가 현재 디벨롭먼트 관련해서 하고 있는 어떤 부분의 로드맵을 말씀드렸고, 다음번은 이제 저희가 그 클라이언트 베이스에 고객을 찾는 어떤 방향, 어떤 서비스를 만들고 싶어 하는가의 하나의 예로 갖고 왔습니다. This is one of the example of our client, and the company name is called IVS Technology, and they are the best CCTV and sound analyzer system. 이 IPFS라는 회사는 현재 한국에서 CCTV와 그다음에 소리를 자동으로 분석하는 데 최고의 회사입니다. And they offer public and military security, crime prevention, store management, ITS, and many other fields by predefined and continuous machine learning abnormality detection of human and automobiles behavior, as well as various sound like screaming, gunshot, and car crash. 이 시스템은 우리나라에서도 최고의 고객, 가장 어려운 고객이라고 할 수 있는 정보의 보안 쪽이라든지 군사 목적으로 현재 계약이 돼서 사용이 되고 있고, 이제 해외 진출을 준비하고 있는 상황에 저희랑 같이 공동 개발을 하고 있습니다. 이 특이한 거는 CCTV가 단순하게 사고 사후에 그날 그 시간대를 찾아 들어가서 여러 사람이 그 24시간의 데이터를 보는 게 아니라 시스템 자체가 뭐 저기 있듯이 그 사고를 예방한다든지 때리든지 불이 났든지, 불도 어떤 화염을 그러니까 온도를 측정하는 게 아니라 화염을 보기 때문에 가장 초창기에 발견을 할 수 있고, 왜냐하면 대부분의 불은 그 온도로 측정했을 때는 사실 이미 가스 때문에 많은 사람들이 이미 사망한 이후인 케이스가 많은데, 여기는 그걸 전부 업틱으로 해가지고선 소프트웨어가 스스로 판단을 인공지능으로 하게 돼 있습니다. 그래서 대부분의 그런 사고를 예방한다든지, 그 다음에 이제 스토어 매니지먼트가 마켓에 들어와서 물건을 훔치는 거라든지, 그 다음에 ITS는 이제 교통 관제 시스템이라든지 사고 이런 거를 다 스스로 인공지능화돼서 분석을 하고, 특히 또 전 세계에서 유일무이하게 이 회사는 소리를 분석을 합니다. 그래서 여자의 비명 소리, 위험한 상황에서의 그 다음에 자동차가 부딪히는 소리, 총소리 이런 걸 다 분석을 합니다. 길게 제가 설명한 이유는 the reason that I explained quite long about what kind of capacity they have, capability they have. 이 능력이 이렇게 여러 가지 제가 설명한 이유는 it's because that means they got tons of data. They got video files, they got audio files, they got edited portion, all kinds of for the different purposes. 그래서 이는 이유가 굉장히 많은 양의 비디오와 굉장히 많은 양의 오디오 파일 데이터를 지금 가지고 있고요. 지금 이 순간에도 여기서 그 수백 군, 수천 군데 깔아놓은 그 끝단에 있는 비디오와 이 CCTV에서 계속 데이터가 네트워크로 올라오고 있습니다. And still today, all their endpoints CCTV, they send data. And I asked them, so where do you guys store them? They said, according to what kind of budget the customer has. 그래서 고객이 돈이 얼마 있냐에 따라 스토리지를 그만큼 넣어준답니다. And the maximum capacity they can come up with a per server basis. 가장 많이 넣을 수 있는 거는 한 석 달. 왜냐면 워낙 양이 많기 때문에. 그 다음에 이제 클라우드에 넣을 준비를 하고 있을 때 저희가 우리와 함께 일하자. 해서 지금 그 작업을 하고 있습니다. The accuracy has been proven by the top-notch clients. 아주 최고의 고객, 아까 말씀드렸지만, such as Security Division of the Government and GOP and DMZ. 여러분들 아시겠지만 DMZ에 몇 달 전에도 북으로 넘어간 케이스가 있은 거를 찾아내지 못해서 Really? I'll make it short. Okay. Yeah. 그래서 현재 국방부하고 계약을 맺어서 DMZ에 그 한 400~500km를 전부 다 또 집어넣기로 되어 있습니다. 그 또한 저희한테는 다 데이터입니다. Okay. And Vogel Networks, well, they have a request to make it short, so I'm going to make it short. So Vogel Networks, we lead them to work together. 저희가 이제 해서 현재 같이 테크니컬 팀이 미팅을 계속 하고 있고요. Out of 1 billion CCTV worldwide and 16 million in Korea, market demand grows by 30% for the intelligent analysis service in private and public. 그러니까 현재 전 세계에 등록된 것만 10억 개의 CCTV가 있고 우리나라에 1,600만 개가 있습니다. 그래서 이 전체가 항상 1년에 30%씩 성장을 하고 있기 때문에 저희는 굉장히 저희한테 좋은 고객이 아닌가와 이 회사와 비슷한 또는 어떤 형태의 CCTV건 제가 알기로 우리나라 그 SP도 그 작업을 하시는 분이 있는 걸로 알고 있고 그래서 굉장히 좋은 시장이라고 생각을 합니다. 컨피규레이션이나 이런 거는 통과하겠습니다. 이미 다 설명을 드렸는데 이제 CCTV 단에서 올라오면은 이렇게 서비스들을 종류별로 다 얘가 디텍트를 한다는 건데 유튜브에 들어가도 IVS 테크놀로지라고 치면 거기에 다 나옵니다. 그래서 한번 유튜브도 보시고요. Okay, I'm gonna skip these things. And that's how the system look like. 그래서 소리, 뭐 CCTV는 어떻게 생긴지 아시니까 저런 것들이 실제 아마 교통 사거리에서도 앞으로 굉장히 많이 보시게 될 겁니다. Okay. And for the third, MX system, semiconductor for FIL-SP. 이거는 뭐냐면은 저희가 또 다른 분야에서 그러니까 마이닝이라는 게 우리한테는 꼭 거쳐가 될 과정이기 때문에 거기에 상당히 많은 투자들도 하시고 또 잘된 부분도 있고 머리 아픈 부분도 있고 여러 케이스도 있을 거라고 생각을 해요. 근데 the reason that I brought it up is because they have this special device called semiconductor chipset base, and that does ease down the CPU power and also read and write access for the storage. 그래서 얘가 하는 일은 이제 GPU가 하는 역할은 웬만큼 아실 텐데 CPU가 하는 역할을 이 그 반도체 시스템 반도체가 해줍니다. 그 다음에 그 스토리지에다가 읽고 쓰고 할 때 쓸 때 굉장히 시간을 차지하는 거를 얘는 자체적으로 그거를 자기 스토리에다 넣어놨다가 한꺼번에 쏘기 때문에 그 시간이 굉장히 빨라져요. 그래서 저희가 현재 보니까 한 3배에서 5배 정도 빨라질 수 있다는 판단은 씁니다. So we figure they're about 3 to 5 times faster for the mining process and storage, storing process. 그런데 still, we are not going to really strongly recommend it yet until we 100% prove that if it works, not as a lab, basis service. 그래서 저희가 랩에서 된 것만을 가지고 아직까지 끝낼 건 아니고 10월 달부터 본격적으로 이제 테스트 들어가서 이게 정말 효과가 많다 그러면 SP들하고 쉐어를 해서 그렇게 되면은 장비가에서 절약이 될 거고 전기 값이 절약이 될 거고 여러 가지 베네핏들이 있다고 합니다. 그래서 저희가 또 이런 부분도 저희 회사 내부 팀에서는 검토를 하고 있습니다. I'm going to skip all these hardware structures and algorithms for that. 그 조금 아까 말씀드린 알고리즘이나 기술적인 건 다 패스를 하겠습니다. 시간이 없어서. Okay, this is last part. Upgrade in business perspectives. 마지막 부분이 저희가 굉장히 중요하게 생각을 하는 부분입니다. 그러니까 하드웨어, 소프트웨어, 테크놀로지 다 좋은데 저희 회사는 좀 이렇게 중진 세력들이 많아요. 연세가 좀 있는 분들. 그래서 비즈니스 상당히 많이 해왔는데 기술도 좋지만 고객을 만족시키지 못하면 저희는 비즈니스는 성공할 수 없다고 생각을 합니다. 그래서 Vocal Networks, with the 30 years of our business experience, we believe that satisfying the customer base and client is the best way to succeed the business. 그래서 방금 말씀드렸듯이 그 어떻게 우리가 고객을 만족시킬 것인가인데 사실은 어저께 이전까지만 해도 화가 제가 많이 나 있었어요. I was really angry bird until like before the yesterday. But after I talked with these staffs from Protocol Labs, I was really impressed. 근데 어저께까지 굉장히 화가 났었는데 어저께 이 멤버들 여기 와주신 우리 프로토콜 랩사의 멤버들과 대화를 하면서 상당히 많이 달라졌습니다. It's because it took about 3 months to get the first request, data cap. 첫 번째 data cap 신청했을 때 3개월 걸렸고 아직도 저희가 the second allocation we're waiting for it and it's been about 3 to 4 months. 3-4개월이 걸려요. And also the communication channel is really we lost. 그래서 커뮤니케이션도 누구랑 대화해야 될지 사실 저희 회사는 랭귀지는 큰 문제 없는 분들이 많은데도 불구하고 굉장히 어려움이 많았어요. 그래서 화가 났었는데 스테판과 클라라와 우리 또 모든 멤버들과 어제 쭉 얘기를 해보고 나서 저희가 느낀 건 그런 모든 게 다 갖춰졌다면 아마 우리는 오늘 이 자리에 없을 것 같습니다. So we figured that if everything is so perfect in business perspective, I don't think we have a seat today here to be seated because everything is all so perfect and we got no rooms. 그리고 이렇게 발전하는 회사, 젊은 세력들이 만들어가는 회사 속에서 저희가 저희 역할들을 이제는 찾아야 될 거라는 걸 어제 절실히 느꼈습니다. So yesterday we deeply thought and figured that it has to be us work together with the protocol labs, not as like sit back and act like a customer, but actually be enthusiastic about resolving the problem together. 그래서 business commitment over to client and customer. 저희는 사실 저희 원래 비즈니스는 클라이언트가 저희를 택하게 돼 있잖아요. 데이터를 갖고 데이터 캡을 받아서 스토리지 프로바이더를 찾아야 되는 건데 지금은 사실 그들은 이걸 모르기 때문에 저희처럼 투자한 SP들이 그들을 찾아서 같이 가고 있는 구조거든요. So the process is like vice versa. It has to be like from client to the SP for the searching process, but it's SPs are looking for clients and go together for the business-wise. 그런데 이런 프로세스가 제대로 안 이루어지면 사실 고객들이 화가 날 수가 있습니다. 그래서 사실 그동안 저희도 대답 못한 건 있었지만 이제는 굉장히 자신이 생겼어요, 저희도. So before I wasn't really confident about how to explain to our clients, but now I'm sure I'm very, and our vocal group, we are very confident about this is ongoing way. And this is still infant stage. 아직 아기 같은 상황이기 때문에 그 notary governance에 대한 어떤 불만 이런 게 알고 보니까 그분들도 되게 바쁜 분들이고 많은 일들을 그 어떤 자원에서 하고 있는 분들이기 때문에 so we figured that okay, we're gonna work this together. And yesterday we learned a lot from Stefan that they are preparing so many things for the SPs. 그래서 스테판하고 어제 대화하면서도 SP를 위해서 굉장히 많은 것들을 준비한다는 것을 배웠습니다. 그래서 그런 부분들이 혹시 저희가 먼저 접하면 같이 나누고, as you know, in Korean proverbs, when your cousin, buys some land, you get stomachache. 알다시피 사촌들이 땅을 사면 배 아프다는 얘기도 하는데, 이 정말로 everyone involved in Filecoin business is accountable for the success of IPFS world. 그래서 우리 SP들이 서로 다 같이 잘 돼야지 이 비즈니스 성공할 거다라는 게 저의 마지막 결론이었습니다. 감사합니다.
네, 열정적인 강연 보여주신 토닐리 회장님께 감사드립니다. 고도화된 기술을 통해 다양한 분야에서 활용되는 기술들을 보고그룹에서 설명해 주셨습니다. 이제 다음으로 문랜딩 프로젝트에 대해서 발표해 주실 안젤로를 무대 위로 모시겠습니다. 열띤 박수로 맞이해 주시죠.
Thank you for giving me the time to talk about Project Moon Landing. Oh, perfect, thank you. Let's get started. This is me and Caro, so we developed a project together. She can't be here today, but I'll do the presentation for you all. So I'm Angelo Shelley. I'm a solutions architect at Protocol Labs. I'm working on the storage provider enablement side, so I'm here to help you succeed and get as far ahead as you can get. I started 2 years ago or something like that on my own storage provider system in Belgium, which I'm originally from, which I will talk to you about later today in a couple of hours. Started at Protocol Labs around 5-6 weeks ago. And this is my first project that I'm going to present to you. So this is the agenda we're going to talk about. Let me move on a little bit. So moon landing. Very important to make sure that we store all the public data sets available out there, and we're making it a program so you SPs can help us store all that valuable data so we can keep it on the internet or on the network as long as possible. And we made it very interesting for you, which we're going to talk about right now. So before I can get into the details of moon landing, let me first talk about Slingshot. I don't know if anybody heard about Slingshot before, but this is version 3 already. Version 1 and 2 has been out there. I don't know if did anybody participate in version 1 or 2 of Slingshot? I don't know if there's anybody. Nobody? Okay, then I won't mention it too long. Okay, so Slingshot, its main mission is to make sure that we keep all that valuable data, all those public data sets are available on all the time, available for everybody. And the program is all about it. So if you want to have a look at it, go to the new website. I will share these slides later with everybody because it has a lot of links in it. So I'll highlight some stuff, but to make sure that everybody can still get it later. Okay, so Slingshot v3, right now where we're at, around 50 petabytes already onboarded. So we're at a good start already. V3 just started a week and a half ago. So it's all brand new and ready to go. The main thing, very important for you all as SPs, is that all the data that you're storing at this point is all Fill Plus, so all verified deals. I'll explain what Fill Plus is in a little bit, so you're all on board with that too. Also, again, go to the website where you can look at all the data sets are available that you can go store. Now, Fill Plus, real quickly. Everybody knows what Fill Plus is? No? Okay. Thank you. Okay, Fill Plus, quickly. It's divided up in a few components. You have the notary part. We'll be doing a small set of KYC just to make sure that we're dealing with like real clients with valid data, right? On the Slingshot side, we'll be the client, so it's already validated. At that point, when you're validated and you have valid data that you're bringing to the network, you'll get, as a client, you'll get a data cap assigned. Could be any amount of data, depending on what data set it is. After that, you will be making deals with storage providers based on that data set and how much you want to replicate that over the network. At that point, you'll be burning through your data cap, but the benefit of it is that the SP you're working with will be able to store that data for you, and it will be able to 10x its power. So it's very incentivized for the storage provider at that side. So if you can work with clients that you know, you can ingest that data, you can work with other SPs, and you can grow together. At that point, making more block rewards at that point for that verified data that you just produced. Going further in Slingshot, two very important things to remember. There is the data preparer side, and there is the storage provider side. The data preparer side is very important to me myself. I'll get into a little bit of detail further. It's like you'll be actually preparing the data itself. You'll be putting it available for the storage providers to download. It's a lot of work to make all these car files put together, presenting them to the world that storage providers can download them. So we made an incentive model around it. So as a data preparer, you'll be able to make several thousands of fill doing so. The details are up in a second. The storage provider side it's a little bit like you're working together with all the data preparers, kind of like when the data sets are made available, you need storage providers to store them for you because you need several replicas to do so. You'll have to work together. You need to find the SPs and the DPs to work together. And during the project will help you establish those connections. So very important to keep that in mind. Next. What I was talking about, here are some of the incentives. I just put it out here. It could go up to a max of 1,000 fill per petabyte per data set, and it's all about onboarding those replicas, which can add up pretty quickly. Very important here is the matchmaking part, which we will help you during the moon landing project to get you started. More details on that in a little bit. I put this slide in here as a reference slide for you to get started. So this is the link to the website with some requirements. There are several technical requirements to get you started. So there is the deal engine part, there's the data prepare part. I already mentioned Project Singularity down there, which you will use as a data preparer to get that data ready to create those car files for the storage provider to start sealing all that data. Now, very important here is that you need to build that solution yourself at this point, right? All the data is available, all the code is like open source. You can go straight to it, you can play with it, you can use it, but it's still like part of it is a manual process. Also, during moon landing, we'll be providing you with technical content, so you don't need to figure that all out by yourself. So that's coming soon. Switching to Evergreen. I know I'm putting out a lot of buzzwords here right now, but that will make clear in a little bit. Evergreen right now is a continuation of Slingshot. So Slingshot is storing all those public data sets, and as you know, they will expire when the deal of a storage deal expires in like a maximum amount of 540 days right now. Evergreen makes sure that that data stays on the network. So what it does is it has a deal engine which you can use. For instance, I'll get into that here a little bit more, is that looking at the network, you'll probably be storing like a lot of public data sets already on your own miner. You will have a lot of public data sets already on other miners in the network. Evergreen is built that way that you can first pool your own data that you already provided to the network, reseal it again, and provide it back to the network. So you're incentivized by resealing your own data at that point. And then when you're ready with that, you can look into the network and just pull more data in and store those extra copies and make extra block rewards on top of that because of that fill plus 10x reward factor. And to keep in mind, because you're sealing all the time within Slingshot, which version 1 and version 2 has been going on for 1.5 years now, that means that deals will expire all the time. That means that the Slingshot program will be there for a very long time. That means that if you need public data sets and you want to start storing data right away, and you want to have those extra block rewards because you get that 10x power in the network, Slingshot and Evergreen is a really great program to get started right away. And even if you want to grow your current system right from the bat, you can go here and just go do that. Now, few requirements here. See if I mentioned all of them. You can store them up to 10 times, which the network, which the tool will take care of. And of course, several replicas cannot be in this same data center, but that's something that you need to keep in mind. One of the things I'll talk to you in a little bit. Yes, okay, so Evergreen, same thing as Slingshot. There is data that qualifies, which as you said, that's the public data sets that are expiring. Participants, any SP can participate. So any of you that has a storage system out there, go do this. I do it myself, the Slingshot and the Evergreen is great. It's very easy to do. Once you have set it up, it's a really good system. There is again, in the program details, you can go in, you'll see that there is a tool available. You need to register, you need to use an authenticator tool to get that going, but all of that is explained in the program details. Also, when you sign up for the moon landing project, we will provide you with technical deep dive on how you have to do that. So, and there you go. Okay, moon landing. What we're going to do, and when we're here in South Korea, we can work together as a community on that. It's if you sign up for moon landing, we will help you connect, because that's the hard part, right? It's like finding other people that you can work with to store those replicas for you during Slingshot. So we're gonna put you together, make you work together, and we will help you like achieve that. Right. This is a slide that I just wanted to add as a reference. This is something that will be coming up and could be very interesting for you all, is that it's called the Phil Plus Enterprise Program. I mentioned Phil Plus before, which you will get like a 10x multiplier on the storage power if you're storing verified data at that point. The main takeaway here is these two ones here. It's like we're gonna work a lot better on getting you that data cap real quick. Like there's more automation on that, so you don't have to wait too long to get you started. On the other part, because you're already putting a lot of effort in storing that data and doing all that business development with clients, we want to help you, of course, incentivize that to make it worth your while. And this is a good one. It's like you don't need to store all the copies with other SPs, which you have to do during Phil Plus, but with the Enterprise program, you can store an extra copy at your own storage solution, which means that if you're storing, for instance, 10 terabytes of storage at that point, which is 100 terabytes of storage in power in the network, which you will gain block rewards on top of those 100 terabytes. But with the Phil E program, what that does is you can store another 10 terabytes, which will grant you 200 in total, right? Because it's 10, 10, it's 20 times 10, it's 200 in total, which you don't have when you're just going through Phil Plus. Okay. This is it for moon landing. Very important. Sign up here. Very simple form, just go to it. We'll invite you to the moon landing website and, to the Slack channel, moon landing Slack channel, where we'll give you technical content. We'll invite you for socials, workshops to get you started in Slingshot and Evergreen to work on that together. If you have any questions, you can put it in that Slack channel, or of course reach out to me directly or to Caro, anything you want to make that go. Some extra useful links that I've put out here. These ones are very important. After you get signed up, we'll invite you to all these channels. The Slingshot ones are already publicly available, so definitely check those out. The Evergreen and Slingshot link where you can sign up to get started. Phil Plus if you want to learn more about that, potentially become a notary or get data cap as a client. And then the moon landing page. Again, me and Caro are always available. We're always on Slack. So always ready to help you out with any questions that you have on any of these subjects, when it is Evergreen, when it is Slingshot, when it is Phil Plus, Phil E, the moon landing project that ties it all together. Always happy to discuss all these things in detail with you. So on that, I don't know if anybody has any specific questions. No? I'll be sharing these slides somehow. We'll make them available to you, so you have that as reference model. So thank you for the time. Thank you. Thank you.
네, 사실상 확장 가능성이 무한한 기술 그리고 물랜딩 프로젝트에 대해서 자세히 설명해 주셨습니다. 그럼 여러분, 이것으로 1부 강연을 마치고 지금부터 15분간 쉬는 시간을 가지겠습니다. 방명록을 아직 작성하지 않으신 분들은 꼭 스튜디오 앞에서 작성해 주시기 바랍니다. 라운지에 케이터링이 준비되어 있으니 자유롭게 이용하시기 바랍니다. 2부 강연은 4시부터 재개됩니다. 잠시 후에 다시 뵙겠습니다.